In the early seasons of the year 1950 Plastic Time, a series of large-scale battles erupted along Green-held territory, breaking a period of relative quiet. Death to the Greens was the war cry found on the lips of two colours in this campaign, for the Tans and the Greys had formed a powerful alliance. Their target was the River House, a Green stronghold in Sector 5, also known as Salt River. Its importance lay in what it was guarding. The house served as a connection between Sector 5 and Sector 4, Sector 4 being a hotly contested zone between all the colours. If the Tan or Grey forces broke through, the rear of the Green Army in Sector 4 would be exposed to a second front. Opening up a second front was an acceptable risk for the Allies. They wanted to take out the main Green airbase in this area, the famed Airbase Gaul. Housing many of the fighters and aircraft of the Green Air Force, the Allies were keen to knock it out, stripping the Greens of their air superiority.
We must send another battalion to Sector 5 now so they can arrive in reasonable time. Storms have made 2 of our passages have a 5-hour delay time.
The passages between the sectors had to cover a long stretch of land, cutting through a thick bush to ferry soldiers and equipment between the two Green positions. The distance meant that both sectors had difficulty providing a quick response for each other during an attack. The delay caused by the storm effectively isolated the River House, something the Allies took advantage of. They struck first.
The first attacks were inside the house. Their various cells, they made a few scattered assaults. Looking back, they had the signs of a probing mission, but no, I don't know.
What happened afterwards?
Not sure. Major Agrippa rotated my unit to the flower beds, left the reserves inside. Heard they were moved to buff up the Eastern Front for when the Tans attacked or something. Communication was shit, so didn't hear a damn thing about it.
The skirmishes in the house confirmed to the Tans and Greys the reactive nature of Green Command under Major Agrippa. With this intelligence, they moved into the main assault.
What we have here is a tough nut to crack. The Pukes have almost complete control of the house, with most of the major fire positions in their hands. This includes many artillery nests, high-rise locations to position snipers and infantry, and even the below-ground bunker. This location we shall avoid altogether, Command concluding it is too costly to be strategically viable.
We Tans sure had it tough. A frontal assault? It was crazy. We were going to be chewed up. I didn't have to march into that meat grinder, though. My unit was on the flanks. Wasn't easy either. Those snipers had fine pickings from their nests. Felt powerless, unable to shoot back.
The Tan forces made their main move to the east. This area was heavily defended by Green units, who had vastly superior defensive positions. Elevated gun ports allowed artillery and tanks to rain explosive fire upon the Tan troops. It was not a viable assault. The Tans did not have the strength nor the strategic goals to take the eastern side. It was all a ruse.
Keep the men and tanks spread out. I want pockets to dig in and draw out their fire. Don't worry about inflicting damage. Try staying alive. Gain ground, but when the Greens make their advance, pull back to the pre-prepared positions.
Indeed, what looked like a clear victory for the Greens was in fact manufactured. Green troops would eventually make offensive moves, regaining lost ground at a remarkable pace. Pictured here are those that stopped to show off the spoils of war. However, this is all a ploy.
Agrippa has sent his reserves to deal with my troops, and his men are giving chase. We are pulling back at the moment to tie them up near our earthworks. It is now or never, General.
We are moving now. Send another 2 companies. I will need them to fill the breach.
Now? You guarantee it will be broken that fast?
Their lines are now paper thin. It will follow my schedule. Have those men dig in and cover our backs. The flower beds are the last guard to those sector passages. We will need the cover.
Understood. Prepare to receive.
The Tans had successfully distracted the Green forces, drawing the bulk of troops and heavy weapons away from the flower beds. Grey forces moved in quickly. Convoys of tanks, troops, and artillery came through the flanks, establishing a strong foothold to launch their assault. Major Agrippa hastily launched a counterattack, moving his few troops and tanks into new positions.
We had little trouble. What I found to be our most effective asset was the heavy machine guns. The general had called up quite a few teams. We had the Greens pinned pretty well, allowing us to do our jobs and get the artillery into position.
Once the grey cannons were in place, they unleashed a deadly barrage on the green lines.
Sir, we've just lost half our armor. Over.
Hold up. Captain, what is the situation? Over.
The artillery has punched holes in our lines. We have lost most of our tanks. The men are suppressed. We can't hold on.
Captain, respond.
It was too late. Grey troops had broken through the undermanned flower bed. The poor leadership of Agrippa, the masterful planning of Wagner, and the sacrifice made by the Tans had allowed for the line to shatter rapidly.
Explain to command how Major Agrippa died.
Died trying to save face, I guess. He didn't know how far the Greys were until they were literally kicking down the goddamn door of his bunker. They dragged his ass out kicking and screaming. I watched the whole thing from my position. We didn't run. We didn't listen to those other fuckers. We just barricaded ourselves near the Observer's Hill and watched the whole thing happen. He did manage to shoot a few of them before they bashed his head in with rifle butts. Agrippa left us no last orders, so we had to contact Lieutenant Julius, who was now in command. We were to link up with his pocket and make our way to Captain Horace on the Eastern Front. Yeah, you know the rest from there.
Do you have any last comments on Agrippa?
Look, that guy, his legacy, go ahead and give him his 21 gun salute if you want. Or don't. I don't really care. I don't care about his posthumous honors or whatever else. Because, I already know guys that are shitting on this man's grave. Okay? So, for the sake of the army, I say we just brush him under the rug and forget all about him.
With Grey and Tan forces now entering the passages between Sector 4 and 5, the battle was now effectively over. What would occur in this period afterwards was a series of smaller conflicts, mainly limited Allied offensives and Green resistant activity.
We still have the equipment and strongholds. We lost men during the Tan assault on the eastern wall, but we're still at good strength and the capability to keep fighting. That's exactly what Captain Horace had us do.
The forces under Horace would carry through this campaign of disruption, preventing the Greys and Tans from opening up the channel to move more troops into the second front in Sector 4. Though eventually forced to pull out in 51, their actions allowed the Green forces time to respond to the smaller Allied forces that arrived. Had Horace's troops not been present, the Allies would have been able to ship more soldiers and allow for a greater offensive. This is Green Mile contacting Red Line, over. One more transport awaits evacuation. Requesting air support to cover the last elements. Over.
This is Red Mile, we hear you. Rousing aircraft to provide a final strafing. Get out of there safe, Captain. Over.
At the end of the conflict, the Greens had seen significant losses, mainly with those stationed in the flower beds. However, they retained much of their heavy equipment and were able to evacuate it. The Tans saw that the forces they committed to the first assault were mauled badly, with cases of 2 entire companies being lost. It was the Greys who experienced the lighter casualties, allowing them to operate at full strength. This enabled them to make significant gains in Sector 4, establishing a foothold from which Tan and Grey troops could flood in and intensify the war for the House.
We have gotten over the first hurdle, but now begins the real war. I doubt we will see any significant progress for a long time. I shall run wild for the first year or so, but soon the Greens will see my forces countered significantly.